Navigating the eGrants system. Agencies interested in applying for the 099 state leadership grants and/or an 054 family literacy grant will need to navigate through the eGrants system in order to complete the grant application. This presentation will assist applicants with accessing the system, selecting agency user roles, creating grant applications, entering and editing responses, avoiding common errors, and completing a grant application. Applicants can access the eGrants system through this link. For ease of access, add the eGrants website as a new desktop shortcut or save as a favorite. If you find it difficult to access the eGrants site, try a different internet browser. As a backup, the eGrants system can be accessed through the official Pennsylvania Department of Education PDE website. To access the PDE link, applicants will need to scroll to the bottom of the main page. During this presentation, red arrows will notate key items on each slide, in this case, the PDE grants link. Each staff member working on the grant application, referred to in this presentation as agency user, must have a login name and password. If the agency has never received a grant from PDE, it will need to apply for an Education Names and Addresses Number, EDNA, in order to access the system. This request is made through the RA-ABLE email account. The division's fiscal administrator will assist new applicants in obtaining an EDNA number, signing up for e-signatures, if interested, and getting staff members login names and passwords. If the agency has been a PDE grant recipient, its local security administrator will be able to assign login names and passwords to new staff assigned to work on the grant application. Once the login name and password have been accepted, the agency user will be asked to select a program office. Select Adult Basic and Literacy Education. A successful login will take the agency user to the eGrants homepage. For additional assistance, user guides in the form of PDFs are located on the right side of the page. In the center of the homepage is eGrants News, which periodically provides important updates. The top right corner of the eGrants homepage contains the agency user and logout links and the program year, grant management, administration, and help drop-down menus. The first priority for an agency user is to change the program year if it is not already set to 2017-18. At the top of the page is the agency user link, a blue person symbol, which allows the user to access their My Profile page. In the My Profile page, the agency user can edit their name, phone number, and email address under Personal Information. To change the default program year, select Settings. Set the default program year to 2017-18. If the agency user opts to use the program year drop-down menu on the eGrants homepage, the date will change, but the agency user will have to reset the date each time they enter the eGrants system. Returning to My Profile page, the program year is now set at 2017-18. The agency user can view his or her grant application duties by selecting Roles. The agency user should be assigned roles based on their grant application responsibilities. An agency user can have from 1 to 7 roles assigned to them. Note, this agency user has the user administrator role, which allows her to view and edit other agency users' information. Applicants often have several staff members involved in the grant writing, review, and sign-off process. To view the current list of agency users, select the Administration drop-down menu on the eGrants homepage. There is only one option, User Management. Each agency must have at least one staff member with the user administrator role in the eGrants system. Only the user administrator can access and edit the user list. On the agency LEA user summary page, the user administrator can add and delete users. Selecting the tablet and pencil symbol will access the staff member's agency user detail page. In the agency user detail page, the user administrator can add and delete roles for the agency user and renew user access each year. For a complete description of user roles, reference page 8 of the Agency User Management User Guide, located on the eGrants homepage. Agencies are responsible for managing their own eGrant users and need to take time to review and update the user list before starting the grant application process. Once the program year and user roles have been updated, the grant application process can begin. To create a grant application, the agency user must have the Project Create role. Using the Grants Management drop-down menu, select Grant Profiles. The Grant Profiles option brings up the grant summary page. All grants being competed in program year 2017-18 will be listed, but the agency user can only create those grant applications listed in the agency's letter of intent to the Division of Adult Education. If an agency has not submitted a letter of intent, it will not have access to the grant applications. In our example, the 054 Family Literacy Grant application is selected using the tablet and pencil symbol. Once selected, the 054 Grant dashboard appears. The grid at the bottom of the dashboard shows that the agency is approved to create the grant, but it hasn't been started. Select the Create Grant Application button located in the Tasks box in the upper right-hand corner of the dashboard. The agency user is now on the Create Grant Application Wizard page. For a grant competition, the grant application type is always new. Select Next to continue. The agency user will then make corrections to the agency's application contact information if necessary, and then select Next to continue. The agency user needs to select the method of authorized sign-off. This should be determined in consultation with a staff member who has agency sign-off authority. For additional information on sign-off authority, reference the Grant Agreement section of the Request for Grant Application Guidelines, RGAs. Select Next to continue or Previous to edit prior questions. If the agency user is satisfied with the information entered into the Create Grant Application Wizard, select Finish. Once the grant application has been created, staff members assigned as agency users will need to access the grant by using the Grants Management drop-down menu and selecting Grant Applications. This is an example of an 099 State Leadership Grant Application Detail page. On the left side of the page are the narratives, applicant information, and budget content areas. Every grant application has the same 3 content areas, but the number of sections and the number of questions in each section varies between grants. This is an example of the 054 Family Literacy Grant Application Detail page. Note that the 054 grant application has significantly more application information, referenced as program year details in the 054 RGA, and narrative sections compared to the 099 State Leadership Grant application. The Guidelines button is the only link on the right side of the detail page that the agency user will need to use during the grant application process. Selecting the PDF symbol will link to the 2017-18 Adult Education and Family Literacy Guidelines. This slide shows total allocation amounts for a 099 State Leadership and an 054 Family Literacy Grant application. The 099 State Leadership applications have set allocation amounts that can't be exceeded when applicants are creating their grant budgets, though they can request less than the allocation amount. The 054 Family Literacy application does not have a set allocation amount. Agencies can submit an application for an amount based on the number of families they intend to serve during the program year, taking into consideration cost per family limits provided in the 054 Family Literacy Request for Grant Application Guidelines. At this stage of the application process, the grant status is in process, and the workflow step is data entry. Once the application is completed, the workflow step will change. Using the 054 Family Literacy Grants Demonstration of Effectiveness section, let's look at a typical narratives question. This is an example of a multi-line text box question. If the agency user requires additional guidance to answer the question, they can access the Help button by selecting the blue question mark symbol. Clicking on the black X will close the Help box. Each multi-line text box question will provide the applicant with the maximum number of characters allowed for an answer. Spaces do count as characters. Keep in mind that maximum character limits vary from question to question. A spell check is available, though agency users are encouraged to first write the answer in a Word document for editing purposes before pasting it into a grant question. X's have been used to represent an answer on this slide. At the bottom of each screen page are Save buttons. Clicking on the Save and Continue button will save the agency user's answers and allow them to continue working in the section. Selecting the Save button will save the agency user's answers and return the application to the grant application detail page. Depending on the number of questions in a section, the agency user may have to scroll down to see these buttons. If an answer exceeds the maximum character limit, a yellow error message will appear when the agency user tries to save the answer. The agency user then has to review the answer to determine what sentences can be removed without limiting the response to the question. Depending on the size of the answer, the agency user may have to use the up-down toggles to access the portion of the answer that needs to be deleted. When the agency user has reduced the number of characters to fit within the maximum limit, the Save and Continue button should be used again. The agency user may encounter several yellow warning messages when working on the grant application. Each provides specific information on the issue causing the problem. A green Save was successful message will denote that the response is within the maximum character limit. Select the Mark Section Complete button, located at the bottom of the screen, when the agency user has answered all the questions in a section. When an agency user marks a section complete, a blue check mark will appear beside the completed section on the grant detail page. If there is no check mark, the agency user either didn't complete all the questions or forgot to mark the section as complete. The agency user can reopen completed sections to revise answers. Before editing a question, an agency user must re-enter the completed section and select the Make Section in Process button at the bottom of the page. This removes the blue check mark from the section. After the editing has been completed, the agency user will need to click the Save and Continue and then the Mark Section Complete buttons. Once these are clicked, the section will again have the blue check mark. While most of the narrative sections have multi-line text questions, the budget and applicant information sections will have tables that require multi-line and single-line text box responses, drop-down menu selections, and/or numeric responses. These are reviewed in the General Grant Guidelines presentation. Sometimes the eGrants system will experience brief difficulties, heavy usage periods, technical glitches, and applicants may see this error message. Many times, backing out of the section will erase the message, but sometimes agency users will need to exit the grant application before this error message will disappear. For continued issues with this message, contact the eGrants Help Desk. If an agency user has a period of inactivity while working on a grant application, for example, steps away from the computer for a few minutes, or has been working on the grant for a long period of time, a timeout warning will appear. Note, sometimes even when the agency user hits the Continue Session button, the eGrants system may still log out the agency user. On the eGrants homepage, agency users can get assistance with eGrants issues by selecting the Help down menu. The agency user has three options: Online Help Agency, PDE Help, and Send Question. The Online Help screen provides links to basic information about how to perform specific tasks in eGrants. Other links contain detailed reference sections and step-by-step guides. PDE Help. The PDE Help support documents provide assistance with managing user profiles, accessing applications, and locating the agency's local security administrator. Send question. If the applicant is experiencing technical issues with eGrants, selecting Send Question will allow the applicant to send an email to the eGrants Help Desk. Do not send a technical question through the RA Able email account unless the eGrants Help Desk has not contacted the agency or resolved the issue within a couple of business days. Some tips. Carefully read all guidelines and policies that apply to the grant application. If there are issues with accessing eGrants, using a different web browser will solve the problem. Use the grant application back buttons versus the web browsers whenever possible. As previously noted, programs should create multi-line text answers in a Word document for easy review before entering into the application question. Having other staff members review the narrative's responses is advisable. A second set of eyes is never a bad thing. Budgets should be worked out before entering figures into the system. Work closely with fiscal staff when creating the budget sections. Budget sections may have entries and totals that include cents, but the total budget summary amount must be an even dollar amount. Agency users should regularly save their work. When the grant application is completed, all sections on the left side will have a blue check mark. To send the application on for peer review, use the Complete Step button at the bottom of the grant detail page. The Complete Step button, once selected, will change the application's workflow step. The agency administrator must be sure that the grant application is completed to their satisfaction before this is done. To be able to access the Complete Step button, the agency user must have the project writer role. Note, in a competition, administration signatures are not necessary during the initial grant application process. After the Complete Step button is selected, the workflow step on the grant application detail page will change from data entry to submitted for peer review. The peer review process may take several weeks. Applications will receive notification from the division when the process is completed. Technical issues with the eGrants system should be addressed by calling the eGrants Help Desk at 888-498-8129 or emailing them through the grant application's Send Question page. Any questions about grant questions or obtaining an EDNA number should be sent to RA Able. Applicants should review this presentation in conjunction with the 099 State Leadership and 054 Family Literacy Requests for Grant Application Guidelines, the Adult Education and Family Literacy Guidelines for Program Year 2017-18, and the General Grant Guidance Webinar recording, which covers the applicant information and budget sections. These are located on the Division of Adult Education's homepage at the Division of Adult Education's Grant Competition page.